Greetings, beautiful souls. This is Bevin Niemann-Cortez, and I'm with Hearts of Earth. If you aren't familiar with what I do, I am a guide and mentor for those who consider themselves Earth empaths. Maybe you feel the degradation of our planet so deeply and it just hurts inside. Maybe you have the gift of animal communication where you're able to connect with our furry companions and you just have a way to communicate with them. Maybe you can look at plants and you know which plant is healthy and which plant has a disease, and you know what to do instinctively and intuitively. If this is you, welcome. You are so welcome here to Hearts of Earth. And happy April Fool's Day. So I love April Fool's Day. I did not have a good sense of humor when I was a child. I had a few jokes pulled on me, and then I hated April Fool's Day. But as I became an adult and I learned how to have a sense of humor, how to laugh at myself, because it's one of the most important things that we can do. And this day reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously, to kind of let go, to like be a little goofy, to be a little foolish, to tap into that inner child, to follow your curiosity. And for this oracle reading today, part tarot, part oracle, I have pulled Fool cards from various decks that I have. And we'll just start to talk through why the Fool is such an important archetype to embody within ourselves. Not just for new beginnings, which is something that the Fool can stand for and can represent, but also just that sort of like letting go, that surrender, and then taking a leap and being brave. So let's dive in. This is not the Rider-Waite deck. This is the Witch's Tarot. But this Fool card is probably as close as it can get to sort of the original, if you will. A figure sort of standing on the edge of a cliff. They only have, a stick with a bandana and just a small number of things. So they're not taking everything they own. They're not taking everything they've ever known, just the most essential things. And in the original Rider-Waite deck, this dog is actually pulling the person back. So there's a part of themselves, or perhaps people or experiences in your environment that are holding you back from sort of taking this leap. And perhaps you've been thinking of taking a leap into the green consciousness movement, really starting to realize and recognize the impact that climate change is happening on so many communities, including the community I live in here in Mexico, are experiencing the effects of global warming, of erratic weather patterns, of tsunamis, of, all the things, earthquakes, and so many things. The earth is very restless right now because as humans, we haven't been very good to her. So, some people are thinking, maybe I should work in this field. Maybe I should immerse myself in nature. And yet taking that leap can feel really scary. You see this little dog is running away, like, nope, not going over the cliff. And it's normal for us to have these doubts, like we feel in our body and we have a knowing, an intuitive knowing or a divine download, whatever you received, that this is the right direction for you, that you want to lend yourself somehow to the preservation of species, to the conservation of land, to science, to exploration, to using creativity to describe the impacts, doing storytelling. So it can be, a little nerve-wracking. And this is one of my favorite decks, which is Dreams of Gaia. And again, you see this figure, they have a few tools on their belt, so they're not going out there into the wilderness alone. They're not going out unprepared. They have skills, they have tools, they have things that really resonate with them. And they just decided to take whatever friendships, connections, relationships, resources, but only what they can carry, right? So moving into the green consciousness movement, and I spent many years in the corporate world, and including in landscape design for commercial purposes. And I tried to kind of make myself fit into that, but I always found myself being angry and upset and arguing with my bosses, and why does the system have to be like this? Why are we using so many chemicals? Why are we doing this? And many people now are looking at the job that they have, and I think this has been happening since we had the COVID quarantine as a global society. What am I doing? Where am I living? Is this working for me? Is this what I want to dedicate my time and my energy? And I think especially those who are just starting out in the world and trying to really find their place and find a passion and do sacred work that's not just about dialing in or doing your 9 to 5 or doing your 10 to 10 or whatever it may be, and it doesn't have any meaning, right? So when we're in that place, and I was in that place for many years, I was doing something that did not have meaning for me. And as an empath, I have to have meaning and purpose in my life. If I do not have something to focus on, something that I feel is helping others, is helping our planet, I feel kind of lost. I feel sort of like this. I kind of hermit up, and this is a card of really embracing yourself if you're going through this thing. That there is this full moon, right? The full moon is today on April 1st, and what we're doing is transmuting pain. So I want to make a clarification here, because I know that there are people who are out there speaking about empaths, and everyone has a different idea, and that's fine. But some people say that empaths are here, and the reason we have this ability to sense energy and to sense particularly emotional energy, that we're here to transmute all of the world's pain, every other person's pain, the planet's pain. And I just vehemently disagree with that. I do not believe that's our role. I believe that we are a sacred mirror. So when we make ourselves a sacred mirror instead of a sponge, instead of breathing in all that toxicity, and it's difficult. I mean, I've been doing this work and working and mentoring empaths for 13 years now, and it's still hard for me to not take that in. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of wars, conflict, and many of them are being initiated by my home country, which I disagree with. There's starvation, there's land degradation. I think 75% of the earth's land has in some way, shape, or form been degraded by human activity, whether that's logging or extracting minerals, or trying to tap into water systems and things of that nature. And so, there's a lot of very dense energy. There's a lot of fear on the planet right now. And I mean, we're kind of going through that right now as empaths. We're really feeling all of this, the division, the divisiveness, different philosophies that different people have, and about how society should be constructed. We're going through this massive dismantling right now, and the Fool energy is really helpful during that, because sometimes we need to be able to make a joke and make light of something that is so hard to be present to. Like sometimes I wonder, like, why did I come here during this time in human history? And you may feel the same way. But what's really, so we're not here to transmute the world's pain or other people's emotions or other people's physical pain. We are here to be a mirror. We are here to be a voice. Each of us has our own voice, our own presence, and we affect what happens to others around us just by being, just by showing up, just by showing up the way that you want to show up. And it's not always easy, and we're not always having to be a role model. Like sometimes you just get to work on your own pain. A lot of empaths have gone through trauma from their family of origin, or trauma in relationships, or other situations, medical trauma, whatever that may be. And we need to focus on that. We need to focus on taking care of ourselves, working through that shadow side, looking at all the things, finding ways to release and surrender, and not be caught up so much in the emotional pain and the mental and the physical. I'm not suggesting you bypass. What I'm saying is that it's good to do that inner work. And sometimes it's good to also take a break, right? And so here you see a more childlike energy, still the fool energy, right? I mean, she's literally, walking and running across the surface of the earth, looking for her place, looking for where she belongs, looking for what is going to spark her curiosity and bring her that sense of purpose. And the small word here says bravery, right? So the oceans, of course, are like 75% of our planet. And a lot of the degradation that's happened has happened here in the ocean area. And we know so little about it. I was watching an amazing documentary the other day by a PhD scientist who really has a gift for um, bringing and translating out these complex concepts that they discover in science and making it more mainstream. And that's really what we're talking about here. I mean, only 3% of all funding for climate change actually goes to land conservation, like land and animal and plant conservation. The remaining 97% is primarily going to what I would call like carbon offsets, technology, using AI. So we're in this very interesting time when we feel so deeply for the planet and we need to have hands on the planet. We need to have our hands in the soil. We need to have community. We need to do community-based projects. And yet most of the funding is going for private companies to build out technology to determine this and that. And technology is great. I mean, I've been looking at LiDAR and how it can be used in permaculture to assess a particular property or a region and assess, for example, the tree cover, the amount of water flow. These things are really valuable for us. We need that data. But plants and animals and the land and the soil are suffering. Our agricultural soils across the world are suffering because of highly industrialized, agriculture. But there are ways to move past that. And so we need more people in this green consciousness movement to to bring out ideas like permaculture, like regenerative agriculture, like food forests, and all the different kinds of things that could be done. And we need people in many different arenas. We need a spiritual connection to the land. You know, I think in like 10 years, about 80% of humans will live in a city. And I lived in cities for many years. And there's a lot of interesting things about living in a city, a lot of cool things to do, different restaurants to go to, a lot of interaction with all kinds of different people and networking. However, there's also going to be a loss of connection with nature when most people move from a rural environment into an urban environment. Now, urban environments can be designed to be green, to bring in solar energy, to have rooftop gardens, to have community spaces where communities, especially low income communities or communities with a lot of crime and they're at risk and marginalized, can have places to meet, to grow food, and to take back some of their area, their territory, and become more self-sufficient. So it takes a lot of bravery to decide if, say, you're in a different career or maybe you're in an allied career, that you really want to dedicate now your life, your lifestyle, and your career to conserving oceans, to ensuring the survival of plant and animal species, to studying the fungal relationships within forests, and fungi is such an amazing field right now. They're finding all different kinds of things. I recently read that they even discovered a fungi that will break down radioactive material if it leaks in different places. So nature has solutions for things. And we can do biomimicry, which is looking at and observing deeply how rivers run through a canyon, how seasons and cycles submit themselves, how birds migrate. And we can look at these things and we can utilize all of that knowledge, which primarily has been collected for tens of thousands of years amongst indigenous people. So indigenous science is an important aspect, and there's a lot for us to learn. So in Western, quote unquote, Western societies, we think that we have like all this advancement, but in fact, a lot of those societies, including my home country, is very focused on extraction. What can we take from the earth? That's why it hurts us so much when we watch the earth, go through fracking, go through, mining, go through deforestation in order to clear more land and grow more cattle so that everyone can eat beef instead of being more vegetarian. Which is better for our planet. I'm not saying don't eat meat. I'm saying think about these things that we're doing. How do we handle our waste? When we come out, when we buy food, how much waste products are there? How much plastic is it wrapped in? These are all things that we can do and we can speak about and we can start talking about, because this is really vital. I mean, as I began looking more deeply into climate change, reading studies, it's very alarming, right? It can cause a lot of fear. It can cause us to kind of shut down. But we have a lot of power. And Earth empaths who care so deeply for our planet have this passion behind it. You can hear that passion in my voice. I mean, I grew up on a homestead and I became a landscape designer. I also taught environmental education to children. And now I'm coaching and mentoring people who want to be a part of the green consciousness movement and who want to create a lifestyle that nurtures your sensitivity and also a career that brings deep meaning and purpose and community connection and impact. I mean, this is what we're really looking for. So this is my favorite one. I'll have to cover it a little bit because sometimes YouTube will censor. But here is the sacred fool. She is, pretty much completely naked. So she's like, I'm just not going to do any kind of convention. And she's got her funny hat with the balls on it, right? The sacred fool, in terms of sort of the feudal system, right? There was often like a court jester, and the king would invite the court jester in for entertainment. But the court jester would actually was one of the only people in the court that could actually kind of rip on the king, could kind of say something, some political commentary, some social commentary, ha ha ha, making it a joke. And we've seen a number of comedians who've done things like that, like George Carlin, and there's others who really use humor to bring awareness to people, because sometimes people want to be entertained, but they can also be educated. And instead of allowing the system to sort of like manipulate you, where it's a marionette, you're actually learning how to manipulate the system, how to work within the system, how to find your way in what is not necessarily an ideal economic and social system for most humans on the planet right now. And I just feel so strongly that this fool energy has a lot to offer. So I want to conclude this reading with one more archetype, and that is the Heyoka empath, which, as I can trace it back, there's a lot of like urban legend about Heyoka out on the web. But I was able to trace it back to a tradition from the Lakota tribe in North America. And basically, the Lakotas believed that certain people were born as a Heyoka, a truth teller, a sacred clown, right? You see the sacred fool. Here she is, the sacred fool, right? Um, Bringing in greater stability and being able to see all of the different aspects and know exactly how to speak about it, when to bring humor, when to be serious. But the Heyoka empath in particular was a person who was often born breech, someone who may have worn their clothes backwards just to be silly, or done things backwards, or there's like an image of a sacred clown riding backwards on a horse, on a donkey, and using humor and using self-deprivation, not self-deprivation, self-depreciation, um, to bring awareness, right? To whether it would be memes or stand-up comedy routine, or an activist sort of person. You know, this is a truth teller, and often if you resonate as a Heyoka empath, you were the person who said the hard thing that was in the room. The energy was huge. It was all over you. You couldn't help but feel it, and everyone else was ignoring it. So you said it. Sometimes people got upset about that because people sometimes just want to avoid things that are uncomfortable. But we can't avoid anymore what's happening to our planet. And we are a keystone species. So we have the ability to make changes in our approach. We have the ability to still get the needs of humans met, because in permaculture there's three needs, and one of them is people care. So we are a good species to have on this planet. We can be a positive species. The choices we make impact and ripple out to so many other plants and animals and environments and biomes. Um, but if we don't make those, everyone on the planet will be affected. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter, what bunker you create. You are still going to be impacted by the effects of climate change and by the effects of extraction and capitalism and how much profit we could make, and looking at the earth as a endlessly renewable resource when it's not. It is a finite resource. This is our only planet. We don't have bases anywhere else. I know we're flying to the moon today. Hopefully they are flying to the moon today to look at creating a moon base there, but we are not an interplanetary species. We are a single planetary species. And this is our home. And if we don't take care of it, and if more people don't join the consciousness movement, and more voices don't rise up, we're going to have a lot of problems, a lot of suffering. And that's the last thing as an empath that I want to see and to feel. So we have to continue to be brave, and we have to continue to step into our leadership. And leadership doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be funny. It can be quiet confidence. There are many, many ways, and there are many kinds of careers where you can plug in your unique gifts and skills, whatever's in your bag here, whatever on your tool belt, and really contribute greatly to this. And the climate change resilience movement and career field is growing. The green movement, clean energy movement is growing. These things are growing throughout the planet in different places. There's pilot projects and all kinds of really interesting things. And it can be science. It can also be art. It can also be theater. It can also be counseling. It could be many kinds of ways that you can connect to what is your sacred purpose, and how can you lend your gifts and your skills to this green consciousness movement. So on this April Fool's Day, this is my call out to you, that if you've been thinking about it, if you love nature, if that's where you feel at home, you just get into the forest or sit on the beach or climb in the mountains, or enjoy the heat of the desert. I lived in the desert for a number of years. Whatever biome feels great for you, wherever you feel at home, and maybe you're even in a place where you don't feel at home, you're like, I really want to live there. This is what I help people with. So you're welcome to look at the description box or the information with this video, and I have a link to my calendar. We could just sit down and chat, and I just want to hear like what's happening for you inside. How do you feel about joining the green consciousness movement? Does it make you want to run away because you're not sure if you can really do it? Or does it make you feel like super excited and you're ready to go? Wherever you are, let's have a chat, and I can give you some resources And if it feels good for us, then perhaps we can work together. But if it's not the right fit or not the right time, that's okay too. So there's a link here if you'd like to talk with me personally. I hope you have an amazing April Fool's Day. May any tricks that are coming forward from the universe be beneficial, fun, and enlightening for you. And may you remember that you are not here to transmute all of the world's energy. You are here to shine your beautiful light, and contribute in whatever way you can, in whatever mode you can. You can help and mentor one person. You can also help in a community level, or you can go into a more global organization and really make a larger impact. And it doesn't matter which one of those things you choose. So if you've been thinking about having a lifestyle and a career that centers nature, I invite you to join me at Hearts of Earth, because this is our heart, this is our way, and this is the impact that we are going to make, because we have collectively the power to change the trajectory of human history. And there is a portal open now for that. There are different pathways available to us, and the choices that we make as a collective, as a human society, are going to make or break. So I love that you are here. Happy April Fool's Day. And I will see you very soon. Namaste, my friends. Be well.